Good evening, members of committee. I see that we have quorum, and I call this meeting of General Committee for Monday, June 4th to order. We will begin with the adoption of the agenda. Thank you. Our clerk is working very diligently here and on many tasks, so thank you very much, Ms. Pizzato. It has been moved by Councillor Papp, seconded by Councillor Kersey, that the agenda for the June 4th, 2012 regular meeting of General Committee be adopted. Are there any amendments to the agenda? Councillor Gurley.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Under item 8.2 CIS, other and new business, I would like to add one item concern that came forward just this morning regarding traffic conditions on Clare Avenue and Quaker Road, and I would like to highlight the whole situation and perhaps recommend a direction to staff. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there a seconder for that amendment? Councillor Papp. I'm going to call the question. All those in favor? None opposed. That motion, that amendment is carried. Other changes to the agenda? There being none, I call the question on the amended agenda. All those in favor? None opposed. That motion is carried as amended. Disclosure of pecuniary interest and the general nature thereof. Thank you. Are there any members that need to declare a conflict of interest? Councillor?
Yeah, I do, Mr. Mayor. It's section 8.3, section A, to do with the extension to the draft plan for Wayland Heights. Mr. Whalen and I have done business in the past and may do business in the future.
Okay, thank you. So noted. Any others conflicts of interest? Can that be noted in the minutes, please? The next item is consent agenda items for block approval. There's a couple of items, being two. Do members want to wish? Would members like to lift any of those items for separate consideration? There being none, it has been moved by Councillor King, seconded by Councillor Durley. The following consent agenda items be received for information. 6.1, report CIS 1812 Municipal Drain Improvement Program Update, and 6.2, report TR 4112, the 2012 tendered projects to May 31st, 2012. I would like to point out that regarding 6.1, the Municipal Drain Improvement Program Update, Mr. Harold Kelly is here. He is our drainage superintendent, and he put together this report as indicated. Thank you very much for joining us, Mr. Kelly, and I understand that he is able and willing to, certainly ready to answer any questions that committee may have regarding that program. Do members have any questions or comments regarding any of the items under consent agenda? Councillor Ribiak.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wonder whether Mr. Kelly, through you, Mr. Kelly, might answer in a general sort of way what kinds of conditions he would need to witness in order to respond to a municipal drainage issue. I can think of some of the drains in our immediate area which look well past the point of which they required maintenance, but I'm assuming that they've been on some sort of plan and there's some sort of criteria.
Mr. Kelly, can you please perhaps go to the podium and see if we can turn that on for you? There we go. I don't know if you heard the councillor's question, the conditions upon which one would react for a municipal drain.
I did, through your worship. Some of the things we look for when we're doing our inspections on drains is the biggest problem we have is sedimentation in the bottom of drains. You'll notice fairly quickly, even after regular drain maintenance, overgrowth will start to happen again. You'll have grasses come back in, trees growing back. Those things don't concern us so much. What does concern us is when we have bank slides and regular sedimentation runoff from roadside ditches, fields, things like that. We do have a regular maintenance program here in Pelham. It's typically an 8 to 10 year program. The drains are performing exceptionally well, I would think. Since they've gone now through, I believe it's been about 2 cycles in the last 20 years, each drain has gone through 2. Once you establish a regular maintenance program, you start to notice less need every 6 or 7 years, so to say, once they stabilize and stay in that condition. I do have, if you take a look at the report, you will notice I do have a drain proposed for this year, Swayze drain. We have had a few concerns from some of the residents. on that drain. And that's another way we determine if a drain needs maintenance, is if it's complaint driven. If we get concerns from residents, we'll go out and take a look at the drain, see what issues they have, and if it's something that can be remedied just by a spot repair, or whether it's time to do a complete maintenance on a drain. Swayze drain, it has been determined by myself, and it's my opinion that there's enough sedimentation in the entire pretty much west branch. East branch isn't as bad, but that it could be due for maintenance this year and keep it in good condition.
Thank you, Mr. Kelly. Councillor Ribbiak?
Thank you, and I think that responds to concerns that I had. Thank you.
Thank you. Other questions for Mr. Kelly at this time? Certainly, I appreciate the report, Mr. Kelly. I can't recall the last report, so certainly I'm pleased that that there is a report here, and also that there's a 5-year proposed maintenance schedule. So I certainly appreciate that, and those that are on those drains can take note when their drain is going to be done. Looking at the map which you provided, and again I appreciate that. I was surprised to see that only maybe half or 3/4, 2/3 perhaps of the municipalities here. So there's no. I guess my question is: are there no drains north of Regional Road 20 in Pelham? There's nothing on the map here.
There is a few small drains. There's one up in this would be northeast corner, Singer's Corners drain. Actually, it was mentioned in the report. There will be a report hopefully coming in the next month or so from the engineer that was appointed on that project with regards to the East Found Hill development secondary plan, I guess. I don't know what we call it exactly, but with regards to the development, proposed development.
That's
that
along Race Road and in that area?
That's
okay.
Correct. Currently, the drain does not extend into Pelham, the existing Singer's Corners drain. We are, however, a tributary to the drain, so some of our lands do drain into that water, or in the watershed of the Singer's Corners drain. The other one would be up on Victoria Avenue by the NET campground there. We have the 15-mile drain comes right up to Victoria Avenue. There's a small portion of it that runs into the campground. There's also a long ongoing report on that one, trying to work with the landowner to get some improvements on his section of the property. It's strictly a single landowner involved in that report. There has been some delays with regards to fisheries and conservation authority. Those issues are being worked out, and who knows when that will come forward, but it's a pretty big project what that landowner is looking at undergoing there. So
Okay.
other than that, the north end of the municipality, really the topography is completely different than the south end. It's a lot more rolling terrain you'll see, and I guess it generally drains itself a lot better. There have been a few concerns that have been brought forward by landowners over the years. Typically, however, for us to do any kind of work or make it municipal drain, there needs to be a petition signed, and once landowners find that out, they seem to shy away from signing a petition and putting themselves, so to say, on the hook.
All right. Thank you very much. Appreciate that answer. Other questions for Mr. Kelly? Oh, Councillor Kersey, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just had a question with respect to costs. We have a 5-year projected timetable for work. Will that be coupled with a projected costing that would be allocated into our capital budget? Or?
Through your worship, municipal drains are actually a cost recovery system. They're separate from municipal infrastructure. They don't come out of the general tax base. It's a user pay system. So every property on each drain in a watershed that's established in the engineer's report pays a portion of that maintenance cost. So an engineer has determined in each watershed what each property pays, and once the maintenance is done on that drain, those costs get entirely assessed back to the watershed until the property is contained in there.
Now, is that done through as part of the tax levy? Or is that a separate billing?
Is that a separate billing? Who can answer that? Mr. Kelly or Madam Treasurer?
This is a separate billing that goes out. We have to bill at least every 5 years on the drains.
I see.
Okay. I remember being billed something like $5 for work on a drain, because that was the portion that my property was said to be covered by. So that's how it works. unless there's, I guess, Mr. Kelly, just to follow up on that, unless there's one property owner, as you indicated, then they would be on the hook, so to speak, for all of the costs. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Thank you. Counselor, anything further?
No, I think that's fine.
Okay, thank you. Others? All right, thank you very much, Mr. Kelly, for answering those questions. Anything else on the other item? Tendered projects? Thank you. I'm going to call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? None. That motion is carried. Thank you again, Mr. Kelly, for that. Madam Treasurer, for that report. Our next item is business subdivisions, and we'll go into our first subdivision, which is corporate services, which is chaired by Councillor Durley. Councillor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and welcome to Corporate Services. First order of business before us. Moved by Councillor Kersey, seconded by Councillor Clark, that report TR 37/12, Employee Computer Purchase Program be received, and that the recommendation contained therein be approved as follows. The General Committee, Corporate Services Division, recommend to Council that report TR 37/12, Employee Computer Purchase Program be received, and that policy P301-12 attached thereto be approved. Any questions or comments? Councillor Ribbiak and then Councillor Pat.
Thank you. Just for clarification, and I'm not sure that the answer isn't within the report. Don't know whether I just missed it, but as I understand the policy, employees are able to essentially borrow from the town over a period of a couple of years to repay their purchase, but it's 100% of the purchase that they ultimately pay, including interest on the charge, and that if there's any cost benefit, it's as a result of bulk purchasing by the town. Is that how?
Through the to the treasurer. Just verification of that. Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. Councillor Pat.
Just a quick question. I know myself, I've bought the computer through the program. It only talks about employees, so this does not apply to us anymore?
It does say
Council.
employees and members of council, I believe. I did read that.
I must have missed it. Sorry, Councillor Durley, Mr. Chair.
The employee computer purchasing plan
Okay,
applies to all
sorry.
full-time town employees and members of council,
Yep,
so we're
sorry.
still included, yes.
Sorry.
Okay.
Okay, I'm good.
Other questions or comments?
Nope.
Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed, if any? That's none. Carried. Moved by Councillor Clark, seconded by Councillor Papp, that report TR 38/12, professional training and development policy be received, and that the recommendation contained therein be approved as follows. That General Committee Corporate Services Division recommend to Council that report TR 38/12, professional training and development policy be received, and that policy P301/13 attached thereto be approved. Questions or comments? Councilor Pat.
Mr. Chair, quickly through you to say, under section participation requiring leave of absence, I guess I may be faulted with putting on my hat as staff. Personally, I don't understand why it would require council approval for the leave of absence, why the CAO and/or the director would make those decisions themselves. Maybe someone could give me the rationalization for that.
Through this to the treasurer or through to the
Either
CAO?
one. I prefer not to have council approval, is what I'm saying, is that it's up to staff to make that decision.
Mr. CAO, can you
defer to the
answer?
treasurer, Mr. Chair.
To the treasurer?
The policy states that where it exceeds a period of 1 week, that recommendation from council would be approved. However, if council wishes to change that, then that's council's objective.
That is the policy as it exists currently.
That's right.
Okay.
I would strike that any leave of absence for the staff person be authorized and reviewed by the head of the department and/or the CAO were required. That's your responsibility. That's just my suggestion, but If we want to approve it, I think we're interfering into administrative areas that we don't need to be involved in. That's just my
Right,
two
and
cents.
this is how the policy was written.
That's the way it was
We're just
written,
bringing
yeah.
it forward back, so if that, we can make that amendment and bring back a revised
Well,
policy.
I'm not saying, I'm not putting on the heads of my members of council, but I just think that's something that you need to do yourselves, not us.
Okay.
Would you care to put that in a
Do you
form
need
of an amendment?
I could do it as amendment, Mr. Chair, or simply as staff direction. I'm not sure, Madam Clerk.
Staff could direct through you, Mr. Chair, staff could be directed to make that change, and then
Bring it
it would be
back.
made before the council meeting in 2 weeks.
There are some other comments that I've received by email, just some minor corrections to
Right.
some wording and stuff that also will be brought forward for final approval as well. I don't know if the wording has to be around all amendments.
Okay, so the motion is to receive the report and approve the attached policy. So in fact, should that be amended that we're
As amended?
as amended? Councilor Beck.
I wonder, Mr. Chair, whether we're talking about specifically this policy or whether we're talking about a leave of absence policy that ought to be reviewed in its entirety.
Does such a leave of absence policy exist in our structure?
Yes, there's leave of absence that's covered under the HR policies and with vacation and absence requests and so forth. That policy hasn't been brought forward yet, but it is coming.
It is coming. Okay, can we wait until it comes? And, and
The whole of it. This is pertaining to professional development only.
Yes.
So,
Okay, the reference to this is, let's let staff do the administration and let's let us do the governance, right? And
correct.
that's the
That's correct.
motion or the idea behind the amendment. Okay, Councilor Verbiak, you still look a little concerned there. Do you
Yeah,
have other
that's my
comments?
constant state of being, Mr. Chair. I wouldn't be
I
too concerned about
recognize
that.
that.
So to understand, is the amendment to make this policy subject to the leave of absence policy? That is, leaves of absence given for educational purposes would be subject to the leave of absence policy?
No,
No.
No?
just because this is specific to professional training, other leaves of absence could be for any other reason. This is strictly for training.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think I understand.
Okay. Other questions or comments? Councilor Kirsty.
I just want to have some clarity through you, Mr. Chair. This policy pertains to employees that are in our employ and would be upgrading their skills at the request of the town for the benefit of the town? Or how does this policy apply to an individual to whom the town makes an offer of employment who may not have full qualifications, but a conditional offer is made to them saying, we'll hire you conditional upon you completing XYZ. This policy would not apply to that expense, would it, or would it?
it depends on the offer of employment. It really does. I mean, if we're recruiting and you find that there's only one candidate that is fully qualified and you make that concession that the courses will be underwritten by the town in the offer, that's something that would be following this policy. However, typically this policy is to deal with the staff that exist at the town that are, once they're hired, there's a commitment to have them upgrade skills in your department, or they've come to us and to directors and made a request for a course that is relevant, and they received the maximum of up to $300 for that course. So there's two different components in here. We're asking, directors are asking them to do the schooling, or they're coming to us, and that has to be approved in a formal process on being relevant to further their skills in the work that they do.
So this policy pertains to those who are full-time employees and not to those that would have condition of employment coming in. So those, I believe, would be taking on a one-off basis type thing if that does come through, and that would be conditional
CAO.
and probably rare, but if in fact it needs to be, it'll be on a one-off basis.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions or comments? Okay, so as amended, the wording will be changed before it comes back to council in 2 weeks, and we will look at the fine-tooth comb, as was mentioned at our last meeting, that will clear up any discrepancies or any questions or concerns, right? So I'll call a question as amended. All those in favor? Opposed, if any? That carries. It is very encouraging to see that we are bringing all of our policies up to 2012 standards. Some things that had some dust on them that I'm sure we're very happy to get rid of that dust. Moved by Councillor Clark, seconded by Councillor King, that report TR 39/12 municipally owned vehicles policy be received, and that the recommendation contained therein be approved as follows. The General Committee Corporate Services Division recommend to Council that report TR 39/12 municipally owned vehicles policy be received, and that policy P100-06 attached thereto be approved. Questions or comments? I did have a concern that I did bring forward to the treasurer, and dealing with the references to disciplinary action, and I think disciplinary action is another policy that we do have, and of course the CAO is involved in all disciplinary action. My concern was that CAO wasn't mentioned here, but reference to any disciplinary action is dealt with under the disciplinary action policy, which contains the CAO as the head administrator of that. So I'm full confident that that is clarified. Any other questions or comments? Seeing none? Oh, sorry, Mr. Mayor.
Just want to acknowledge my fine-tooth comb was out. It's not out tonight, but it was as I was reading this, so there's just a few items that I did suggest to the treasurer. So use of the word mile versus kilometer, which is in the policy, and Ministry of Transpiration, etc. So I know that they seem minor in nature. So
Spell check will take care of that, perhaps.
New departments.
Okay, and that will come back to us, please, right? Other questions or comments? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed, if any? None? That carries. Moved by Councillor Papp, seconded by Councillor Kersey, that report TR 40/12 legal fees variance reporting be received, and that the recommendation contained therein be approved as follows. The General Committee Corporate Services Division recommend to Council that report TR 40/12 legal fees variance reporting be approved. Questions or comments? Councillor Papp.
Very quickly, Mr. Chair, I guess what the other part of this is that you will be restructuring and re-examining the costing of legal services, right? Basically, it's implied, I would suggest, Mr. CEO, right? Because it's very timely. I want to tell you this question came up in some other areas, and I also want to acknowledge your reference that yes, our law firm has done a great job in settling things that we've talked about over the years. So yeah, you do need to examine that whole aspect of it. Look forward to that. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
In all fairness, we had a large volume of action that
Yes.
the law
certainly
firm
did.
had to take care of, so
Yep.
it's understandable that this is through,
Yep.
and thanks for that report. Certainly, looking at the 2013 budget, a restructuring of this policy is definitely in order. Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My question is, with the recommendation before us, it's that we approve it as opposed to receive it. It seems to me this is sort of a heads up, and I certainly appreciate the staff giving us a heads up based on the billing of the first quarter, that we may, at the worst case scenario, run into the numbers I think that are in the report. But we're not, through this motion, we're not approving that, are we? I guess what I'm questioning, Mr. Chair, is shouldn't we just be receiving this report and then approving it when those figures are there? So just looking for some clarity on that, please.
The way I see it, what we're approving is the review of it for 2013 budget. Correct me if I'm wrong, Madam Treasurer.
Yeah, I think there's the report in general to be approved because of using economies from the budget right now, and then that council would be approving that we bring it forward in the 2013 budget for consideration. So there was a variety of kind of inherent approvals in here. So I mean, I was working with the clerk, but it was at the last minute bringing it forward. We didn't get a chance to kind of go over the exact recommendation. So my bottom line was to cover the whole report off and approve the report. So if council wants to receive the report, I don't have any issues with that as well.
In fact, it's the same, because by approving it, we're not approving any expenditures, we're approving a process to review our expenditures. So I think we're being synonymous, but if you would like that wording to be received.
I'm fine with that answer, Mr. Chair.
Is that
Thank
okay?
you. Yep,
All right.
thank you.
Okay, understood. Other questions or comments? Seeing none, we'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed, if any? None, that's carried. Moved by Councillor Kersey, seconded by Councillor Papp, that report TR 27/12 grant application policy be received, and that the recommendation contained therein be approved as follows. The General Committee, Corporate Services Division, recommend to Council that report TR 27/12 grant application policy be received for information, and that policy 300-02 grant application policy be approved. Questions or comments?
Mr. Chair.
The wording.
Well, just when I reflect on some of the grants, we've certainly been very successful with the federal and provincial partners with incentive grant programs, but we've also had some success recently with the region, with another municipal government, and the $100,000 for downtown Fawn Hill reconstruction, some money to redo the official plan, etc. So, or actually the downtown beautification guidelines, there was some joint funding for that from the region. So I would just ask that we include something in here about other municipal governments into the policy, so that it's not just for federal and provincial incentive grants, but other municipal governments.
Consider that a friendly amendment, and the wording to be cleaned up for it to come back to council, Madam Treasurer.
Exactly. The comments were brought to us earlier this week, and the policy has already been changed.
Thank you. Councillor Kersey.
I'd like to suggest also that perhaps we include a line that would state reviewed by. This would in fact force a review of the grant and the success of the grant and the conditions that are attached to the grant, so that we enforce a second set of eyes looking at it, because we have had problems whereby at the 11th hour it was realized that there were certain things within the grant documents that we were unaware of. So I think adding that would force the issue. And also, I would also like a section added here, if possible, where there are limitations or restrictions attached to a grant, that those limitations and restrictions be noted on the grant award form for all to see, so that it becomes very obvious as we review that and receive the funds that we know what we're dealing with in a very simple way.
Madam Treasurer, is that?
You're talking about the actual form.
Yeah.
When they're completing the form. That's no problem. We can add that in.
Perhaps, Councillor Kersey, between now and the next council meeting, you can work with the treasurer to get the wording that you would like there, and I'm sure you could agree on that.
Be happy to do that, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Other questions or comments? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed, if any? None. That carries. And that wraps it up for corporate services, and move on to community infrastructure services. Councillor Clark.
Point of order. Did you
Yes,
not include some other business in this section?
No, in CIS.
My apologies, sir.
Thank you, Councillor Gurley. Okay, welcome to Community and Infrastructure Services. Moved by Councillor Durley, seconded by Councillor Ribbiak. That report CIS-17/12 Harold Black Park Security Enhancements be received, and that the recommendation contained therein be approved as follows. That the General Committee, Community and Infrastructure Services Division, receive report CIS-17/12 regarding Harold Black Park vandalism deterrence, and that an allocation be included in the 2013 budget for the additional lighting at Harold Black Park. Comments or questions? Councillor Durley?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just looking at the type of lighting that's there, this is very close to some residences, and I'm hoping that we will look at the downward directional lighting on that, so it wouldn't migrate into residential properties, because in fact by adding light there we may be creating a nuisance factor to neighboring properties. So that may be prudent that we light up just what we need to light up on our own property rather than to have it all over, just as a suggestion.
Okay, is that a suggestion to the director then? Mr. Mantle, do you have any comments on that?
You can accommodate that.
Councillor Kersey?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I'd like to raise the issue that we run the risk by deferring these costs and security measures until 2013, and in fact, we may suffer greater damage on the playground as we wait. So would it not be more prudent for us, if we see the need there, to fund this out of operating and then in 2013 pay back the operating or the working fund reserves out of a capital account?
Madam Treasurer?
If the project was to move forward today, then it would come out of the Parks Reserve budget.
So we
Typically,
could go
like
directly
a
to the
capital,
Parks
there would be, there's no sense to pay it back
I see.
in next year. That's, okay.
Anyone else? Questions? Councillor Papp?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So the obvious question, is there sufficient funds to cover off the $7,800 currently?
No, there's not.
There's
The
not.
fund is in a deficit, as was
Oh,
approved by
that's
council
correct.
because of the
All right.
ring projects. But it is, this amount being low, it's significantly going to recover itself by 2014, I believe. So, this isn't going to make a huge difference. It's still going to come out of next year's budget regardless, and still be in the deficit that it is.
Mr. Mayor?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd be supportive of what Councillor Kersey is suggesting. As the treasurer indicated, whether we pull the money out of the Parks Reserve Fund today or in the coming days or next year, it'll still be in the same position and will still recover in 2014. I had a glance at the 2012 budget and year-end balances, et cetera. And so, I agree with Councillor Kersey. This is important. We certainly received a letter from a resident in the area that was quite concerned about the security in that area, and I know I've received one or two calls of others that are concerned. We did this in another park, and it's proved to do the job, and I think we should move ahead this year. So if Councillor Kersey wants to make that motion that we pull it out of the Parks Reserve and do it this year, I'd be happy to second that. I guess pending, Mr. Chair, hearing from Mr. Mantle that the work can be accommodated in this year's work plan.
Mr. Mantle?
We can accommodate it.
Go for it. Replace it with, and that the funds be derived from the Parks Reserve.
Okay, so we need a motion. Okay, Councillor Kersey.
Also move.
I'll second it.
Yeah.
So there is a motion to amend made by Councillor Kersey, seconded by Mayor Augustine, that the words that an allocation be included in the 2013 budget for the additional lighting at Harold Black Park, that be stricken and replaced with, and that the funds be obtained from the Parks Reserve.
Good with that?
Do we need to specify that the project would proceed in this working year,
In 2012.
in
yeah.
2012?
could add that, certainly, but pulling the money, like taking the 2013 budget allocation out
It implies that it's all.
implies.
That implies
it
that
would be
becomes
done
part.
That's fine.
Okay. So I need someone to,
So we need to just call the question on that amendment.
okay, so we'll call the question on the amendment. All those in favor? Those opposed? Carried.
And now vote on the amended motion.
Okay, and now on the entire amended motion. All those in favor? Okay. That concludes community and infrastructure.
You got one item.
Oh, I have one item, sorry.
One item.
All right. Go ahead, Councilor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just this morning received communication from a town resident involving, actually, I'll read part of the correspondence. Recently, I was involved in a traffic accident at the corner of Clare Avenue and Quaker Road. I am not disputing the facts in the event which occurred. Fortunately, there were no injuries. As you are no doubt aware, this is the only major intersection on Quaker Welland roads between Niagara Street and Effingham Road which does not have either a traffic light or a four-way stop, three-way at Welland and Haste, of course. After talking to the owner of the Country Corner Market, I was made aware that there are approximately 4 or 5 accidents at this intersection each year. I have no knowledge of the severity of these accidents. There are many driveways accessing Country Corner. At this intersection, I find this area is one of the busiest intersections between Niagara and Pelham roads. This business draws increasing traffic due to its reputation as a barn market. To make a long story short, there is a situation there, and actually I visited the Country Corner Market as police were investigating a collision, and I said to Rick, there's one out there, he says, one a month. So that's a little more than what's indicated here. That indicates to me that there is a problem there as far as traffic, and it is very busy, especially if you go by there on a Saturday or a Sunday. It's just very, very busy. I'm suggesting that perhaps we can direct staff to do a study on the possibility of putting the other 2 stops at Quaker Road, so that it would become a 4-way stop, and that may calm some traffic down, or at least actually eliminate some collisions. If people are aware of a stop, there may be a whole different story. I'm not sure. There are warrants, I believe, that need to be met, and I'm sure traffic count would be definitely meet the warrant. However, there may be other concerns of the Highway Traffic Act and so on, but I would like to direct staff, if possible, to investigate this and come back with a report as to the possibility and advantages that a 4-way stop at this intersection may create. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Do we need a motion?
You want to make a motion?
I asked for staff direction for that. Do we require a motion?
It is a new item, so I would suggest through you, Mr.
Okay,
Chair.
I would like to move that staff be directed to investigate the possibilities of a 4-way stop at the corner of Clare Avenue and Quaker, Clare Avenue and Quaker Road.
Do I have a seconder? Councillor Papp? Any further comments or questions? Mr. Mayor?
I guess hopefully it's inherent in the motion. I certainly appreciate the councillor bringing it forward. Hopefully it's inherent that, what was that quote by somebody, a 4-way stop if necessary, but not necessarily a 4-way stop, that kind of idea, that it may be something else that could be done in that intersection. So I think the motion is broad enough, Mr. Chair, that it does not preclude us from looking at alternatives other than just simply a 4-way stop. So I will support it in that way, that we can look at it with an open mind as opposed to a specific 4-way stop and 4-way stop only.
4-way stop or other
measures.
means to eliminate danger.
Thank you.
Councillor Ribbiak?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just want to voice a hope that any study of this will be done in a timely way, and that the conclusion of a study would be brought to us relatively soon. I can recall that it was rather a large number of months ago that we talked about a stop sign on the corners of Sawmill and I think it was Center, and we've not heard anything with respect to that, and I think it's been probably, well, a year. I would hope that a situation like this one is important enough that we can hear more quickly and have a decision more quickly. And if we're going to wrap this one up, hopefully we can wrap the other one up as well. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Any further comments or questions? Okay, then how we call this motion?
Yes, you have a motion on the floor, moved by Councillor Durley, seconded by Councillor Papp, that staff investigate and report on the possibility and advantages of a four-way stop or other means to eliminate danger at the intersection of Clare Avenue and Quaker Road.
Okay, all those in favor? That concludes community infrastructure. Welcome, Councillor Papp.
Thank you and welcome to Planning and Development Services. First staff report for us is moved by Councillor Bribiak, seconded by Councillor Durley. The report P22/12, application for extension to draft plan approval, file numbers 26T19-02004- Wayland Heights, Oscar Whelan be received, and the recommendation contained therein be approved as follows. That for reasons outlined in report P22/12, General Committee Planning Development Division recommend that Council grant a one-year extension to draft plan approval for subdivision file 26T19-02004 Whelan Heights with a revised lapsing date of June 18th, 2013, and that further the applicant be advised that the additional extensions to draft plan approval for subdivision file 26T19-02004 Whelan Heights shall not be considered. Comments or questions? Mr. Whelan, you cannot address unless you specifically made a request to address us. There is nothing on record here that you were to address council.
There's some items that I'd like to share with council.
That, unfortunately, Mr. Whelan, you have to do, there's a formal process by which you apply to address council. So unless someone knows something that I don't know, I'm not aware of you addressing council tonight. Correct, Madam Clerk? Unless it's the discretion of council.
The other option is we could just defer.
I think it's either that or we defer this, and Mr. Whelan, you come back with a delegation request, and we can walk through those items then. But I need a motion to defer. Is there a delegation request? I don't think there
No,
is.
I don't have one.
Madam Clerk?
You could deal with it unless he prefers to make a presentation, or you could suspend the rules.
I'm gathering that no, we're not going to suspend the rules. So secondly, we can defer it, and then Mr. Whelan, you can come back and make a formal presentation.
Okay, very good then.
If that's, that's something, we do not want to detract from, we do this with everyone. We want to ensure that there's consistency and fairness. So I need motion to defer. And then you understand, Mr. Whelan, you have to file a request to appear to council as a delegation.
Would that be at the next council meeting if possible?
If you can get it in by, yes, as soon as possible.
Okay.
Or, Mr. Larmer, maybe you can,
If I may, I'm not sure of the meeting date for the July council meeting.
There's one more.
Madam Clerk, it'd be June 18th.
Yes, but that's general committee, not council, and council needs to grant draft approval to the
Right.
extension, not the committee.
Right, that's correct.
Oh, I see.
So July.
So defer.
So the delegation would appear June 18th, actual approval of that would be in the July council meeting,
Current draft approval expires in July.
in July.
Meeting's the 16th.
Okay, so it lapses on July 20th, so it's possible. I just wanted to ensure that.
So the current agreement lapses July 20th, so we'd have to hear the delegation, the representation on June 18th, deal with it on July 16th, and then execute the document to
Well,
extend.
To be clear, there's no document to extend.
No, but I'm
That's-
just saying that the current plan agreement
Council
would be
resolution on the
extended for 1 year.
Yes.
Mr. Chair?
Mr. Mayor?
It sounds like dates are running up against dates, so I propose that we suspend the rules and ask Mr. Whalen to speak, not for an inordinate amount of time, just for a few moments.
10 minutes.
But I think there are some other items, so what I propose is that we actually also move this item on the agenda to after those other items, to the licensed patio and to the Rittenhouse Estates, and then deal with this item. So that's my motion, that we defer consideration of this item and bring it back following the consideration of Rittenhouse Estates, and at that time that we invite Mr. Whalen to address council committee.
Seconder? Anybody to that?
Would another option, Mr. Chair, be that we have Mr. Whelan appear at council, and we deal with it forthwith at council?
On June 18th?
Yep.
That's great.
Mr. Larmer,
It's not actually required. If Mr. Wayland attends the June 18th general committee meeting, it would go to council on July 16th. So there's nothing, it's 4 days difference between the lapsing date and the council date, so there's no real issue. Could be the day of, so it's fine.
so what I'm hearing is that there be, I need a motion, if at the wish of my colleagues to, members of council, to defer this until June 18th, at which time, provided, Mr. Whelan submits the request for delegation, we do hear that presentation, and then, based on those discussions, we would deal with it at council on July 16th. Is that the wishes of this?
Point of order, Mr. Chair, that there is a motion on the floor to defer until later on in the meeting and invite Mr. Whalen to speak.
No one seconded that. There was no second.
No, I didn't say.
Oh, I'm sorry. Forgive me.
Mr. Mayor,
forgive me.
yeah,
I thought.
it's not a problem, Mr. Mayor. No, nobody seconded that motion, yeah. I know there was no one to
Okay,
second that.
thank you.
So now I'm asking for a motion to defer. Moved
So
by
move, Mr. Chair.
Moved by Councilor Ribbiak, a seconder. Councilor Kersey. There's no debate on deferral. So this matter will be deferred till June 18th. Thank you.
We have to vote on it.
Pardon me, all in favor? Carried. Mr. Whelan, we'll see you June 18th. Yeah. And I just, Mr. Whelan, it's not normal, but please complete the form and send it in. Ms. Bizzato will help you, give you the appropriate form. All right, thank you. Can Councilor Clark come back in? Yep. All right, our next report, P23/12. Moved by Councilor Ribbiak, seconded by Councilor Durley. Their report, P23/12, request to operate a licensed outdoor patio and cafe on Main, 1455 Town Street be received, and that the recommendation contained therein be approved as follows. The General Committee Planning and Development Division recommend the Council receive report P23/12 regarding the Cafe on Main's request to operate a licensed outdoor patio at 1455 Pelham Street, and further, the Council directs staff to prepare a policy and guidelines for the introduction of outdoor patios on public property. Comments or questions?
Mr. Chair, I'm somewhat concerned and baffled by this report in that, and I must say that I do understand where staff is coming from this, on this. I did some homework on Google, the ever-present Google, and a lot of municipalities, in fact, do have written policies and procedures in place. But, Mr. Chair, we do have at least one business who is chomping at the bit to get their patio up and running. And time is slipping by for the season to even make it worth her while. My fear is that if we go through a process whereby we wait for the development of a policy and procedure guideline for this, that in fact we may lose this opportunity and the business owner may lose this opportunity. What I would suggest or would like to see is that while we proceed with the development of a policy and procedure document, that we deal with the one applicant that that addressed us at our last meeting on an ad hoc basis, and any other applications that might come forward during that interim period, and that staff deal with them with an open mind, bearing in mind that the urban design guidelines and the CIP documents that were developed. I would hope that those documents were more than just mouthing words, that in fact the town's policies will be supportive of what we've written in the urban design guidelines and the CIP documents, and that is that we will develop places and spaces where pedestrian traffic and people can gather and enjoy our community. And I can think of nothing more vibrant and helpful in creating that atmosphere in our downtown core than a patio during the summer season. And our summer season is rapidly closing in on us. So we did do the patios at Summerfest, albeit it was a closed street. I get that. But certainly I think we could have staff deal with the applications that come during this interim period on an ad hoc basis. If necessary, bring a report and recommendation back to council so that it can be dealt with if they were uncertain as to that they couldn't move ahead in confidence on their own. And at the same time, proceed with developing the policies. When I look at some of the restrictions or concerns that are put forward, for example, that we not obstruct on-street parking, if that becomes the rule of law, I can think of virtually no spaces in the downtown core where we could in fact put a patio. And while I understand that parking is a concern, this is for a restricted period of time. It's there for the betterment of the community, and probably will bring more betterment to the community than having one extra parking space in our downtown core. And maybe, yes, we will hear some pushback, but that's part of progress as well. So I think I've picked out one particular policy. There are several others there, but I think I give credit to our staff. I think that they can deal with it on an ad hoc basis while we develop our policy. So it's not to hold up the business owners that want to proceed.
Any other comments, questions? Review?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As a matter of personal interest, I would love to see the town of Pelham develop in this direction. I think that alfresco opportunities really contribute a lot to the town. My concern is that if we don't have a policy of our own, then I guess the applicant is going to need to comply with all of the laws and regulations that are in place with respect to this. And I'm not sure that the applicant will be able to establish what it is looking for without a policy of the town to support it. That's a concern that I have as opposed to any kind of firm position, because I don't know whether the applicant will be able to establish what they want within the parameters of existing law. But it seems to me that without a policy, that's going to be a hurdle.
Councilor Kersey, anybody else for the first time? Councilor Cruz, all right, Mr. Mayor, go right ahead.
I'll go
You want to go?
I'll go after Councilor
Okay,
Cruz.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Go ahead, Councilor Cruz.
Well, I recognize that, Counselor. I think, I agree with you. There are laws that they will have to comply with in any case. They'll have to comply with the Ontario Building Code. That's probably the overriding document that will be a significant document. But there are other methods by which we can allow them to use our property, and we could have them enter into an encroachment agreement whereby we could impose certain conditions upon them, such as that they have to provide us with $2 million insurance, et cetera, et cetera. So what I'm saying is we leave that up to staff to massage and come up with an encroachment agreement that works and allows the process to go forward. And in fact, after we do that, we may be quite satisfied to sit back for this summer, and those patios that have rolled out and are proceeding under an encroachment agreement, we may be able to learn something from them that we can incorporate into our policy going forward. So to me, many other municipalities have policies and procedures that we could draw down on. Our community is different than every other community, just as Collingwood is different than Barrie, and Barrie is different from Midland and what have you. So our learning experience, our needs may be slightly different than all of those. So I would see that this, using an encroachment agreement, an interim step, would provide us with a learning opportunity as well to make a very good and solid policy that we can work with.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I think what Councillor Kersey is suggesting makes a lot of sense. This isn't a perfect world. We're not, maybe we should have been talking about this when the snow was flying, not that we had a lot of snow, not like they did in Grand Cache, but we should have been maybe talking about this months ago, but we're not, we're here. We have the vision, certainly, that's there, that was agreed upon by the council of the town of Pelham, and certainly by residents and business owners, et cetera, that this is the type of direction in which we want to go. And a good test of it was, as Councillor Kersey indicated, Mr. Chair, with Summerfest last year. I think it was an overwhelming success. And no doubt some of those businesses that had patios for that time would probably do it again. So I agree with what Councillor Kersey is suggesting. Maybe we need to do both. In essence, move forward with this particular encroachment agreement, make it for a short term in a sense, perhaps. I don't know if that's going to work with the AE, whatever it is, ACGO, the Alcohol Gaming Corporation, or not, whether that gives solace or not to the applicant. But certainly if we can move forward with some sort of agreement and get something in place, but also develop the policy. The policy is essentially here, Mr. Chair, already. It's outlined in the report in broad brush strokes. So maintain the primary use of the right-of-way and vehicular movement, well, of course. Ensure that there's a setback of unobstructed sidewalk, that's important. Travel portion of the road, et cetera, that's important. Sight lines, perimeter fencing, all those kind of things are important. So I would presume, Mr. Chair, that that's sort of a straightforward piece in the policy. So perhaps we can move forward on it with an eye to this policy, which is half drafted as it is, and come back to us something at council or on the policy at committee or something, but to try to move this forward. I do have a concern, and Councillor Kersey again is taking the lead on this, but I do agree with him. It says, according to the report, Mr. Chair, page 2, not to be built in locations that obstruct on-street parking and other necessarily delivery access to private and public building. Well, I certainly agree with access to private and public buildings, that's important, but obstructing on-street parking, when I think about the communities in which there are patios like this, I was in Halifax last year, they take over a parking spot and then in fact they put the sidewalk onto the parking and obstruct the parking. That's the whole arrangement. Or you think about some areas in Toronto, they do that. So that one I think is not the right piece, but the rest of it, Mr. Chair, is here. So I don't know how we achieve that procedurally, because this seems to be not a fine-tooth comb meeting, but a procedure meeting. That's probably half due to me earlier at council. But I'd like to do both, that we direct staff to prepare a policy, but also that we begin the process to enter in an encroachment agreement with the applicant.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Any other speakers to that extent? Councilor Durley.
My big concern is the terms that will be set down by the AGCO. They're sometimes are very sticky. I know in speaking to Ms. Fagan that she has had contact with them, but we certainly need to make sure that we're going to follow every policy and procedure that they put forward, or we're going to get into some challenges that we don't necessarily have to go into. And the planning staff certainly would have to find out from the Alcohol and Gaming Commission just exactly what is required. They probably do have a good idea already, but we need to make sure that these are followed. To allow a patio for a one-year term as a trial basis based on this is certainly good. I think it's a great idea. It's a great vision, and it's could be a great boon to the downtown, and may catch on that others will want to do it. But certainly we have to do it right. We can't get it into a position where we may jeopardize, the owner of the property or ourselves there. So certainly it needs some research with as the report indicates, the two bodies that will be governing what we can do. So definitely that. I am in favor of the encroachment agreement, if in fact all terms that are set down by the Alcohol and Gaming Commission are set. Go ahead with it on a trial basis until the end of September or whenever they want to take it down. It is, as Councillor Kersey says, a learning experience. The successes of that could form the basis or the foundation for an excellent policy that we can put in place. So I'm in favor of that, but definitely we have to make sure that we cross all the T's and dot all the I's from the bodies that will govern in the long run. That I think is imperative. Thank you.
Any other speakers to it? Councilor Kersey, can you take the chair for a minute? I'd like to address that as well. Thank you, Councilor Kersey. I think what I'm hearing here is something that, and as well in my discussions with the applicant, also members of council, that what we're doing is two things. One is we want to we have to develop a policy and guideline because we want to continue to enhance and build upon what we started not only here, but will probably occur downtown Fenwick at some given point. And I agree. You've heard me say this before. We always got to be careful about liability and exposure to ourselves. We don't do things that are considered ultra vires, and people challenge us on that. I don't think this is one of those. I think it's quite the opposite. I think it's something that we can engage and execute the necessary, whether you call it encroachment agreement or legal documents, on the interim basis, subject to, as many of you have stated, that the building code and others. And let's try this and see how it goes. Just as a matter is, if I understand correctly, and perhaps Mr. Larmer, you can, through you, Mr. Chair, is this the only applicant that's made this application downtown?
This is the only presentation that council's been provided with. Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Larmer. I appreciate that. So I would be in favor that, as part of the other direction, is that aside from just, acknowledging the request, that we proceed to actually work out the details through the necessary legal, all the necessary documents that protects the applicant, and ensure that it doesn't set a precedent that we're saying we're doing things outside, and at the same time proceed to develop the appropriate policy and procedure to govern this, because we know this will come back and will open up the opportunity for other possibilities for other businesses. And you're right, I have seen this operate in many, many communities, and it has operated safely without, as long as there's no, I could say, impeding types of structures or types of things done that prohibit, as Mr. Mayor says, you're blocking street parking. Not unless you've been buying in some beverages, you have a habit of parking in places where you shouldn't be, and there's usually precautions that can be taken. So I would support not only the development of the property and the policy and procedure, but also support a direction for staff or a motion to that effect that we carry out the necessary execution of documents and that for this period of this year. And by this time next year, we should probably have something in place, I hope, to deal with this. Thank you. So what I'm looking for, and thank you, Madam Clerk, is exactly, you read my mind, is we're looking for a motion to amend these two recommendations that would include, and Madam Clerk can help me, that we proceed to execute the necessary documents, legal documents with respect to the fulfilling and granting of a licensed outdoor patio at 1455 Pelham Street. Is that basically? I think I've covered within. I guess I can't give a period of time. I don't know how long that would take. Basically, that's what I'm hearing.
Yeah.
Is that correct, councillors?
I think that's fine.
All right.
Need a mover and a seconder for that.
We need a mover and a seconder. Moved by Councillor Kersey, seconded by Mr. Mayor. Councillor King, sorry, I missed you. Councillor King, seconded, moved by Councillor Kersey. So basically, the amendment would read that we proceed to execute the necessary documents and those provisions needed to carry out and approve the operation of an outdoor licensed patio at 1455 Pelham Street. All in agreement? Any further? Go ahead, Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Chair, just to this amendment, so it's an encroachment agreement, I guess, that we're
Well,
going
whatever
to
you're gonna
be
be
negotiating, and Councilor Durley raised a good point about the building code and the.
Compliance with the.
So that's all in this
be
building
included.
code,
Yeah.
insurance, et cetera, right?
Right.
Requirements of the AGC or OBC.
Yeah.
That's correct, Mr.
Okay,
Mayor, in compliance with all other legal binding requirements under the building code and Gaming and Alcohol Commission. Any further comment? Councillor Brebiak.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a question with respect to how this is going to flow. We're passing this motion today, I presume. It's going to come to council at our next meeting. I'm wondering, I guess, whether work on this will be started between now and then.
If so, approved, Mr. CAO and Mr.
We'll commence the groundwork for this immediately, and we'll present back to council
On the 18th?
On the 18th.
All right.
That answers my question. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair.
Any further comments or questions? On the amendment, all in favor? Carried. On the motion as amended, any further comments on that? Do you want me to read it out again? But all in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you, members of council. And we look forward, Mr. CEO, to report back. I think I need a drink of water with this. I haven't had one of these in a long time. Okay, report P. No, Councilor Kersey, I know what you. That moved by Councilor Durley, seconded by Councilor Ribiak, the report P21/12 Rittenhouse Estates be received, and the recommendation contained therein be approved as follows: that the General Planning and Development Division receive Planning Service Report P21/12 regarding official plan and zoning bylaw amendment application AM0112 and draft plan of subdivision application 2016-19-12001 Rittenhouse Estates 937776 Ontario Inc. dash part of lot 177 former township of Thorold, town of Pelham, and that the Rittenhouse Estates draft plan of subdivision file number 2016-19-12001 be approved in accordance with the provisions of the Planning Act ROS 1990 as amended and regulations thereunder thereof, subject to the conditions appended to this report as attachment 1, and that all parties be advised of the council's decision on this application in accordance with provincial regulations, and that the mayor be authorized to endorse the draft plan as approved 20 days after notice of council's decision has been given, provided there have been no appeals against the decision have been registered, and that the applicant be advised that the town's draft approval of this subdivision plan will lapse 3 years from the date of draft approval unless an extension of the approval period is granted by town council, and if an extension is requested, an updated review and revisions to the conditions of approval may be necessary in that time, and that the official plan amendment application AM0112 be approved with the lands being redesignated from commercial open space multifamily to single-family, and semi-detached to multifamily, and that the staff be directed to prepare and present the necessary adopting bylaw for consideration by council, and further, that the zoning amendment application AM 0112 be approved with the lands being rezoned from a general GC 89 zone, an open space OS zone, to residential 2 R2 zoning, residential multiple 1 RM1 zone, and amended general commercial GC 89 zone, but that the bylaw not be passed by council until such time as the related subdivision receives draft plan approval and the appeal period for the draft plan approval has expired. Comments or questions? I did that in record time, I think.
That was excellent.
Any comments or questions? Hearing none? Oh, Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Chair, very pleased to see this moving forward. This is a piece of property that's been, I guess, shouldn't use an agricultural term in the urban boundary, but fallow. Hasn't been used. It constructively for the last number of years. It's been sort of one of those properties that you might drive by on Pelham Street and say, what is ever going to happen with that? Well, this is a great proposal that's being put forward to use this property in a very appropriate way for services that are required in our community, but also to help with filling in some of the areas in the lot 177, which I know has a huge history in the town. It's taken many years to develop, and this appears to be the next logical piece that will help with that development. There are some concerns, Mr. Chair, that are outlined. We received at the public meeting in terms of access and traffic, especially in that enclosed, I'll call it, subdivision area. But this ultimately will help relieve some of that as development progresses to the north. And I certainly hope that it will soon, and I think there's some movement in that direction. The other that was mentioned, Mr. Chair, was a park. I know we heard that in other areas as well. Staff had indicated in the report that a park is to be included in the next northerly piece. I think it's drawn in here in sort of a draft area. That's something else that members of that particular part of the community have been calling for. They can access another park in the meantime, but it will certainly help with that. So very supportive of this, Mr. Chair, for all the reasons I've stated. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Any other comments or further questions? Councilor Gerald.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you to perhaps Mr. Larmer. I know at the public meetings there was a great deal of concern surfaced regarding the proposed three-story building and that faces on Pelham Street. What, if any, consideration was given to that? The objections were there. Is it compatible with all the regulations and so on and so forth? But has there been any consideration given to those heights that perhaps would not conform with anything else in the area?
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair. The current zoning has a good amount of flexibility in it, so that if this application wasn't in front of us, there could be a commercial building that's 10.5 meters constructed much further into the property, so in closer proximity to the dwellings to both the south and to the east. So we had to take into consideration what potential is there right now. So a building of 3 stories in height could be constructed right now. It could have balconies on it, and it would be office space instead of residential. So that type of building could be constructed right now. When we look at the opportunity that this proposal represents, the building is going to be closer out to Pelham Street, so to be further removed from the existing dwellings and from those proposed. The setback, the parking is being provided in the rear of the building, so that's putting the building even further away from residences on adjacent properties. So that the thing that you typically encounter is a complaint of overlook. So who is using the apartments, balconies, and looking out into the residences in the back? A couple of things. The dwellings are approximately 40 meters away at their nearest point. So there's a good amount of distance in between the proposed building and the nearest dwelling. There's a planting strip that's required along the property boundary, and while it wouldn't provide immediate buffer, over time the trees would grow and shield the single detached dwellings from proposed commercial. So we've considered the impact of the development in that light.
Thank you. One further
Right
question
ahead,
through
Councilor
you, Mr. Chair. Reading about it's in the Draper Creek Basin, and has there been an environmental assessment regarding what any more surface water flowing would be? I've heard over the past couple of years a lot of concerns from agricultural community in Sumbler and Chandler Road that the water is not flowing the way it should, and there is an extra volume of water ever since Woodstream Estates and Cooper's Court and these things were built, that there is an increased flow that is going there and not really hitting Draper's Creek the way it should be. It's causing some problems there. Is there a relationship to the extra volume of water from this development that could be impacting down there, and if so, would this add to it?
Well, as described in the report, the Drapers Creek facility that's at the rear of Harold Black Park was designed for the ultimate development of Lot 177 secondary plan. So right out to the north at Merritt Street, or one tier of lots in from Merritt Street. So there will be impact. The water will be getting there more quickly, but the post-development flow shouldn't be any greater than the pre-development flow. So the same volume of water will be in that facility, but it's probably getting there a little more quickly.
Okay.
If there's an issue, that would be news to me. I'm not aware of any issues. Perhaps Mr. Mantle is. I'm not certain.
Mr. Mantle is well aware of one in particular, and so am I. But, and this is, they're saying coincidentally, as the development increased in the area of Lot 177, the impacts increased in those areas down there as well. And if there is a relationship, is there anything that can be done? If there is no relationship, then, that's what's just happening. So, these are concerns that have been brought up, and they're saying, like, coincidentally, you built more development there. Coincidentally, I have more problems on my property. So, I just wonder if there could be a connection, and if there is a connection, could there be some kind of a resolution?
I'm not familiar with the exact implications.
Perhaps.
All I can say is that the town built this facility in the late '80s, expecting that development was we'd be out of it. We're not out of it, and we're not likely to be out of it in the next, well, hopefully inside of the next decade we're out of it, and have recovered the costs that the town expended three decades prior. With respect to the operation of the facility, Mr. Mantle, I'm sure, is investigating that as the need arises. So.
Mr. Mantle, would you want to respond, or do you want to?
I can provide some comments. Mr. Larmer is correct in that detention pond was designed and constructed in I think it was the early '80s, and it was established. The town paid for it and collects revenues as each development comes on board from Lot 177. I'm not aware of any issues with the pond. We inspect it on an annual basis, and it's the largest detention pond the town has. So it's a good size. You can wander around through it, and it's partially wooded, overgrown with bulrushes, that sort of thing. So it seems to be functioning. It has a low flow channel which seems to operate, and there's been no maintenance efforts required.
Thank you, Mr. Mantle.
Okay.
Councilor Durley?
Just for clarity, the situation is not centered around the pond behind Harold Black Park. It is the properties between there and Drapers Creek where it flows over some agricultural land. That is the concerns that have been brought forward to me, and you're fully aware of at least one of the situations, Mr. Mantle, because you've been definitely involved in trying to correct some of the problems that may be there. So I'm just, So I'm just wondering, is there a connection there, and if so, is there something that we can endeavor to do to that? It may not concern this development per se, but it overall, this may add to some of the problems. I just want to bring that up so that we can give it attention, because I don't think that's going to go away.
All right. Thank you, Councilor Durley. And duly noted by staff as now I have a good idea what Councilor Durley is referring to. So we'll examine that as the time moves along with the agreement itself. Any further questions or comments with regard to this? Councilor Kersey?
Through you, Mr. Chair. Perhaps to Mr. Larmer. You've addressed the buffering to the rear of the property. I wondered what measures, if any, are going to be in place on the southerly limit, because it abuts on a residential component. To the north, it's on a commercial component. It's less critical, but on the residential component, I wondered what measures could be put in place so that it's not imposing on that residence that's to the south.
Well, a couple of things. There's, firstly, in terms of spatial separation, there's a 3-meter planting strip, a driveway aisle to the rear yard. That's approximately 20 feet, so another 6 meters. And then there's entrance facility to the building. So there is some space in between the property line and the use. One of the issues is that property's been used for decades for commercial uses, and it's been vastly improved since just with the demolition of the previous building, which was in closer proximity to the dwelling that lies to the south. So the person who has constructed the houses that are on the properties adjacent to the south is fully aware of the facility that as it has existed prior, and that it is a much improved condition right now, and that a new building will also be improved. So the town will take its efforts, or staff will take its efforts through the site plan process of providing fencing and landscaping as it's required. So there will be that buffer as well as in the rear. But the building will be closer to the residence that's located to the south. There won't be balconies on that side of it.
I presume through the process that we'd also address outside lighting and have it lit in such a way that there wouldn't be light contamination of the adjacent properties and all that sort of stuff as well.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. In all of our site plan applications, we have a clause in the agreement that requires that the light be constrained to the property that it's lighting. There are issues that come up, and council has heard them, I'm sure, where we end up having to go back and talk to the developer about installing shields or modifying the light structure in some way to ensure that that doesn't happen. But we have the security in place through the site plan agreement to ensure that that doesn't happen.
Anything else? Councilor Kersey?
Only to comment that I think this will be a great development. I think it's going to fill a hole there and enhance our community. So, bravo for Mr. Hassani.
Good. Any further comments or questions? All in favor? Carried unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you, chairs. The next item of business has been moved by Councillor King, seconded by Councillor Durley. Be it resolved that the next portion of the meeting be closed to the public in order to consider the following matters under the Municipal Act 2001 as outlined below. 1. Items under the Municipal Act 239-2B, labor relations or employee negotiations. 1 item. Call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? None. That motion is carried. This public portion of the meeting is adjourned. Thank you.